Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack an invisible psychological force that constantly shapes our most contradictory behaviors and beliefs. And honestly, once you see exactly how this mechanism works, you are going to start noticing it absolutely everywhere. So let's just dive right in by asking a really simple but kind of uncomfortable question. Have you ever done something you absolutely knew was wrong, but somehow you completely convinced yourself it was fine? Maybe you skipped a workout because you told yourself you quote-unquote earned a rest day. Or maybe you snapped at a friend but decided, well, they actually started it. Look, we all do this. It's basically a behavioral glitch in the human mind. It's this internal clash between what we genuinely value and what we actually do. And today, we're going to look at the hard science behind exactly why that happens.
That little behavioral glitch? Psychologists actually have a name for it: cognitive dissonance. First proposed by Leon Festinger way back in 1957, it's defined as that uncomfortable psychological tension that gets triggered when our actions contradict our beliefs, or, when we hold two completely opposing ideas in our head at the exact same time. Now, the really fascinating part here is the word tension. Festinger theorized that this isn't just some fleeting, abstract thought. It's a highly motivated state of tension that functions exactly like a physical drive, literally just like hunger or thirst. When you're starving, your body absolutely compels you to eat to restore balance, right? Well, when you experience cognitive dissonance, your brain compels you to adjust your beliefs or actions to eliminate that mental mismatch.
To bring this down to earth for a second, let's look at a super relatable, everyday example. We have the belief, plastic ruins the earth. A lot of us hold this belief, right? We've seen the oceans, we know the data, but then we also have the action, buying a convenient case of plastic bottled water at the grocery store. These two things are totally relevant to each other, but they completely contradict one another. So your brain suddenly goes, wait a minute, I'm doing something that actively harms the environment I claim to protect. And boom, that creates that exact psychological hunger, that mental discomfort that demands immediate resolution.
So where does this actually come from? Is cognitive dissonance just some modern human quirk born from our crazy complex society? Or are we biologically hardwired this way? Let's get into section 1, hardwired. Monkeys and kids.
To answer that, we have to look at this amazing study out of Yale University. Researchers basically wanted to know if really young children experience this dissonance. So they took a group of 4-year-olds, showed them different foam stickers, and used a simple smiley face rating scale to figure out which ones they liked. The goal was just to find 3 stickers that a child liked equally. Once they found them, they set up what's called a free choice paradigm. They made the kid choose between 2 of their equally favorite stickers to take home. Meaning, the child actually had to reject an option they had just said they really liked.
But here's where it gets wild. The Yale researchers didn't stop with human preschoolers. They adapted this exact same test for non-human primates. Capuchin monkeys participated in a nearly identical free choice paradigm, but instead of stickers, they tested the monkeys' preferences for differently colored M&Ms by seeing how quickly they grabbed them. Once they found colors the monkeys liked equally, the researchers forced them to choose between 2 of those equally preferred M&Ms. They were looking for the exact same thing. Does the simple act of choosing against something you really like create psychological tension in a monkey?
So after making their initial choice, both the kids and the monkeys were offered a second choice. And the data is incredible. In the choice condition, where they had freely chosen to reject an item, they preferred the brand new option about 60% of the time. They suddenly didn't want the item they had previously rejected. But then, in the no-choice condition, where the experimenter just randomly took one item away, the subjects actually preferred the remaining item. So what does this actually prove? It proves that when we freely choose to reject something, we unconsciously change our attitude toward it. We downgrade its value just to justify our decision. And because we see this exact same behavior in 4-year-olds and monkeys, we know for sure that dissonance reduction is an ancient, evolutionary, hardwired mechanism.
All right, so now that we know we're biologically wired to reduce this tension, we have to ask why it hurts us so deeply on a personal level. That brings us to section 2, protecting the self and the self-standards model. The self-standards model basically helps us understand that dissonance isn't just about pure logic, it is all about identity. Dissonance peaks when our behaviors actually threaten our self-image as good, moral, capable people. Take this quote from psychologists researching this exact topic. How can I be a good person and also eat meat? See, bringing harm to others is entirely inconsistent with viewing yourself as a moral person. When we do something that violates our personal standard of being good, those psychological alarm bells just blare. We become absolutely desperate to protect our sense of self.
Which leads us to a massive real-world example of this in action. Section 3. The Meat Paradox, a societal case study.
Think about a border collie, and then think about a pig. In our society, if you were to cage, harm, or eat a dog, you would face deep societal outrage. You'd probably be looking at felony cruelty charges. Yet society widely accepts the slaughter and consumption of pigs. Now, both are mammals and both absolutely feel pain. So the huge question is, how do people who consider themselves animal lovers navigate this? How do we compartmentalize nurturing one animal while consuming another, without just constantly feeling completely overwhelmed by cognitive dissonance? Well, the answer really lies in how we justify that differing treatment through what researchers call emotional prejudice. We tend to favor animals that look cute or babyish, species we perceive as highly intelligent, or those we assign human-like qualities to, like bravery. Now, the reality behind this is fascinating, because pigs and dogs actually share very similar cognitive abilities. In fact, pigs sometimes even outperform dogs in certain cognitive tasks. But because dogs are our companions, we identify with them emotionally. We categorize the pig completely differently, just so our actions don't conflict with our self-image as kind, animal-loving people. And when people are confronted with facts that challenge their behaviors, like the intelligence of farm animals or the environmental impact of their daily habits, they almost always pull up a cognitive shield. It's known as the my-side bias. The my-side bias is just our natural tendency to favor evidence that supports our existing opinions, rather than doing the really hard work of adjusting our opinions to actually align with the facts. This bias is basically our primary tool for maintaining the status quo and pushing away that uncomfortable psychological tension.
So the crucial point here is understanding exactly how we deploy these mental defenses. When cognitive dissonance strikes, whether it's about plastic bottles, smoking, or the meat paradox, humans generally rely on three main coping mechanisms to protect their self-esteem without actually having to change their behavior. First, we rationalize. We say things like, well, everyone eats meat, or one plastic bottle isn't going to matter. Second, we ignore the truth, or just live in denial. We simply look away from the uncomfortable reality, preferring our meat wrapped in cellophane so it doesn't even resemble an animal. And third, we reduce the importance of the belief altogether. We tell ourselves, well, it's just an animal, or the economy is way more important than recycling right now. These defenses kick in instantly to resolve the paradox in our minds. But, there is another way this tension can be resolved. It's perfectly captured by this quote from Albert Schweitzer. No one must shut his eyes and regard as non-existent the suffering of which he spared himself the sight. Instead of rationalizing or ignoring reality through biases, the alternative is to just acknowledge the facts, to actually sit with that uncomfortable tension and align your actions with the reality of the situation. Ultimately, that is the only mechanism for true psychological consistency.
And that brings us to the end of our explainer, but I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. Take a real look at your own life. Now that you know exactly how the machinery works, from monkeys and M&Ms all the way to our deepest societal paradoxes, what invisible tensions are hiding in your daily routine? What other dissonance are you rationalizing right now? I highly encourage you to look closely, because the things we rationalize the most are often the exact places where we have the greatest opportunity to grow. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the obvious.